Greetings, everybody. I want to welcome you here to Prog Monster. My name is Murph. I am the host of this show, a show dedicated to progressive rock and other forms of rock music. So we're doing one of those other forms today, and it's metal time. Yes, I haven't done a metal episode in about a month because I've changed it from every second week to bi-monthly. The reason I did that is because the exploring the prog universe and metal take longer than most of my episodes to do. They take up a lot of time, and I like to do them at a pace that is comfortable, and I'm not killing myself to do it. So this week it's metal's turn, and we also do one other thing with metal that we don't do with the prog universe, which is that we have newer bands versus older bands. So I do an episode of the older bands that have been around longer than 10 years, and I do an episode of the newer bands that have been around less than 10 years. So this week, this episode is a newer band. So I get a lot of my, especially the newer stuff, I get a lot of that from Bryce Talks Metal, which is a YouTube site here. I highly recommend it if you are into metal. This is a guy who knows as much about it as anybody out there. He always has a ton of stuff that I haven't listened to, so I tend to follow him, and I usually pick something from a list that he has chosen or talked about, and then I'll do something on it. So today I've chosen the band Iron Flame. This band is from Martins Ferry in Ohio. That's where they call home, if you prefer. They're a heavy metal power band, or a heavy power metal band, whatever way you want to say it. They formed in 2016, and the members of the band include James Babcock on bass, Quinn Lucas on guitars, Jesse Scott on guitars, Noah Skiba on drums, or Skyba. It might be Skyba actually, but it's hard to say. And Andrew DeCagna on vocals. So this is a pretty good band. I really like these guys quite a bit. They definitely fall in that metal sound that so many bands have taken on, that Iron Maiden sound, right? Definitely the guys' vocals are very Bruce Dickinson-like, and so as because of that, a lot of the music in this band sounds very similar to Iron Maiden. There's a lot of, it's a very Iron Maiden-ish band. They do sound like some other bands as well, but those bands also sound like Iron Maiden. Bands like Holy Grail, Hammerfall, Visigoth, and there's others. There's at least 20 of them, but those are the three I chose to cite. All of them have a very similar style vocalist. I don't know if their vocalists are as good as Bruce Dickinson. Maybe not, but it's hard to say. But they all have that similar sound that his voice has. And this guy sounds as much like him as any of them. So anyways, we're going to talk about the albums. I'm not doing as much on the history of these bands as I was before. It was taking up a lot of time. And I began to think, well, I'm on this for the music, not for a history lesson. So we are going to talk. They have 4 studio albums. They also have 1 compilation album, and they also have a video. They may have other videos, but this was the one that I found. So the first album, which came out in 2017, first full-length album, is called Lightning Strikes the Crown. The vocals are very strong, Bruce Dickinson here. You're going to find that on all of the albums. The guitars are fast-paced for the most part, but they do have some melodical heavy metal songs filling in there as well. So they kind of like to do both, which is good. I like a variety at least in this type of metal, anyways. My favorite tracks on the album were The Gorgon, The Shadow Queen, and Fighting Onward. The last 2 being very kind of melodical, like very melodical guitar riffing, and solos especially, I think, were very melodical. This album has a warrior with a sashed red cloak. Wrong album. I stand corrected. I'm looking at the wrong album. So The cover on this album is what looks like a harpy, a woman. I think she's basically naked, which she has the harpy type look to her, and very much like that type of look. You'll see it when you see her right away. So then you have this. Some of the guitar solos are pretty strong on this album. It's very catchy, and I think it's a pretty strong debut album by them. I love this Iron Maiden sound that they have. It's fantastic. Not really too dissimilar. I mean, it's kind of like discovering new Iron Maiden stuff. I think their stuff is a little bit more streamlined. It's not as varied. With Iron Maiden, you'll have a lot of kind of varied sounds to their music. You get that Iron Maiden sound, that fast, that hammering forwardness, but with Iron Maiden, you will get some slower songs. You will get some heavy drum parts and stuff like that. You don't get that as much on this album, but I think this is a solid debut album. Now their second album, this is the one that I got the. So this one has a warrior in a sashed red cloak. It's kind of slashed up a bit, so it's kind of mangled, with a Norse, warrior-like helmet or god-like helmet, and a great broadsword. So it's kind of like a Conan thing, right? So this album is called Tales of Splendor and Sorrow. Again, the vocals are very Dickerson-like throughout the whole album. The guitars are more melodic and fast at the same time. I think there's a little bit more melodic guitar sound on this album than on the predecessor. The best tracks, in my opinion, are Bringer of Fire, Sword and Shield, and Orphanus. I really like these three tracks quite a bit. They tend to be more of the melodic stuff than the faster paced stuff. I guess that's just my taste in music a little bit. Some very catchy riffs, some excellent guitar parts on this as well. I think this album is a little bit more riff oriented, a little bit more catchy on the riffs. I don't know if that's the case. Because I listened to them back to back, I just found this one a little bit more appealing to me that way. And again, it's a trade-off between the speed metal type stuff that they do and the more melodic stuff. So it's kind of a bit of a balance on both of them on this album. The third album, which came out in 2020, by the way, that album was on 2018. The first one was in 2017. So this one's 2020. Blood Red Victory. This one has a skull on it, along with a crown and a bunch of other things. It looks almost kind of, I want to say it's kind of brooding looking. It's a kind of a brooding looking album, I guess, as you might want to call it that. Vocals, again, are very strong, very Dickerson-like, very melodic but catchy riffs to this album as well. Some solo guitar parts that are quite good and melodic as well. I chose Seekers of the Blade, Blood Red Cross, and Graves of Thunder as the three ones I like the most. I found that the Blood Red Cross, I made a specific note on this one, is that it's very epic melodic. Like it's just grandiose, I guess, maybe. The other one I liked was called Night Queen, another very melodic song. So this one I think I liked the best of the three so far that we've talked about. This one also has a bit of a theme to it, where the other ones kind of were bits and pieces of all kinds of different stuff. This one seems to be more of a theme on war. So there's a lot of most of the songs on this album are very war-oriented type songs. And I found this particular track reminded me of the Visigoths a bit, and I'm not sure why. I just when I was listening to it, they came into my head. So most of the rest of the stuff I was thinking of Iron Maiden pretty much most of the time, but on this particular thing I kind of thought of the Visigoths a little bit. So then we go to the final studio album that they have out currently. This one came out 2 years ago, 2022. Where Madness Dwells is the name of it. It's got a barbarian with a war axe and a giant snake. So he's kind of straddled this giant snake, almost like Conan. He's got a helmet on. I think it's almost like a Thor type helmet with the great feathers on it, and a broadsword and in his hand, or a big war axe. Basically, it's like one of those handles with a big axe on the end of it, straddling this giant snake. All four of the covers, really good artwork, fantastic. I think this one just as good as the rest. I like this one the best, maybe because it's I was into Conan when I was a kid, so it kind of reminds me of that. They do use the Vincent Price voice on this too, which is it is obviously, it's not Vincent Price, he's been long gone, but somebody doing the imitation of his voice did a pretty good job, unless they took this part that they put on here from an actual Vincent Price quote somewhere. I'm not sure, but it does sound an awful lot like him. The vocals are typical of their music throughout. Another absolute Visigoth Iron Maiden sound here going on. Best track, Everlasting Fire, Where Madness Dwells. I like those two tracks. Those are probably my favorite two on the album. There's some strong soloing on this album. I think most of the albums are pretty strong in their soloing. This one just for some reason stood out a little bit more than the other albums. I think I probably prefer the album cover the most of this one, but the other ones are all really good too. But I think I like the third album the best because it had a kind of a plot to it. So you're kind of like feeling like you're listening to a story, which I like. That's something that I've always liked. So I also checked out their one of their videos. Eternal Nights is the name of it. And the thing about them that I found quite good was that even live, they sounded pretty similar to the way they do on the album. Now, whether it was doctored or not, I really don't know, but I thought they did a great job of covering their music and sounding very similar to their albums. Yeah, and the vocalist again, very Bruce Air Raid Siren Dickerson sounding. There's a compilation as well that came out recently, like last year. Good cross between all of their material. If you just want to buy one album, maybe you don't want to buy all four of their albums, you get a good cut of their music off of this as well. I listened to this as well, so it's a good selection of their music, and you won't go wrong that way. So overall, I found they had a very similar, like almost identical sound to Iron Maiden, but of course they were very similar to Holy Grail, Hammerfall, Visigoths, more of the Visigoths than the other two, but yeah, really, really solid band. I think it's a band that I will definitely look for their stuff because I like this particular kind of metal quite a bit. Probably this type of metal and the doom metal are the two that I prefer the most. The doom metal kind of reminding me of Sabbath a little bit, but this is really good stuff, really solid metal stuff. So anyways, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Metal. So Metal will be, this Metal will not be back until next month when we will do a older band. I haven't decided on who yet, but we will be back for that in about a month's time. The next big one will be exploring the Progverse, which we will do in 2 weeks' time, and I still haven't chosen anybody for that yet either. Anyways, I hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you did, please hit the like and subscribe. Don't forget to leave your comments about the band or anything that you found interesting or anything that you want to add or anything that you want to correct. That's fine too. Put that in the comment section. And don't forget to hit the notification bell. And we'll be back in a month's time with another episode of Metal. So have yourself a good day. Goodbye.